I'm 65 years old, and my name is Connie. I spent 30 years teaching high school English in Boston before retiring. My son Derek surprised me with a luxury cruise last month. At first, I was touched by his thoughtfulness. That feeling vanished when I accidentally overheard him talking to his wife Lisa. "Mom will never know it's a one-way ticket," he laughed. My heart shattered, but I kept quiet. Let me tell you what happened next. Before I begin, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below and hit that subscribe button so you never miss my stories about turning the tables on those who underestimate us. My life changed dramatically 8 years ago when my husband Frank died of a sudden heart attack. We had been married for 37 years, and the loss left me adrift in a sea of grief. Our son Derek was my lifeline during those dark days. He would visit every weekend, bringing groceries and making sure I was eating properly. We would sit at the kitchen table drinking coffee and reminiscing about Frank. Those moments kept me going when nothing else could. Derek was always a good boy growing up. Sensitive and thoughtful, he was the kind of son who remembered to make me breakfast on Mother's Day and would save his allowance to buy me little gifts. Frank and I had struggled with infertility for years before Derek came along, making him all the more precious to us. We poured everything into raising him, ensuring he had opportunities we never had. I worked extra tutoring jobs to help pay for his college education, and Frank postponed retirement to support him through graduate school. 7 years ago, Derek married Lisa, a woman 15 years his junior. She was beautiful with perfect blonde hair and designer clothes, but there was always something cold in her eyes when she looked at me. Despite my efforts to welcome her into the family with open arms, she maintained a polite but distant relationship with me. At family gatherings, she would smile and nod at my stories, but I could tell she was just tolerating my presence. After Frank died, I continued living in our family home, a modest 3-bedroom colonial in a quiet suburb. It wasn't fancy, but it was paid off, filled with 40 years of memories, and most importantly, it was mine. I lived comfortably on my teacher's pension and Frank's small life insurance policy, managing my finances carefully as my parents had taught me. About a year ago, Derek started suggesting I sell the house. "It's too big for one person, Mom," he would say. "The stairs must be getting difficult at your age." I brushed off his concerns, explaining that I was perfectly capable of maintaining my home and that I'd enjoyed the space when my friends visited. Still, he brought it up every few weeks each time with increasing urgency. 3 months ago, Derek's visits became more frequent and his attentiveness increased dramatically. He started calling daily and bringing Lisa along on his visits, something that rarely happened before. Lisa suddenly showed interest in my life, asking questions about my routines and health. Their behavior struck me as odd, but I was happy to have more time with my son, so I didn't question it too deeply. Then came the dinner that changed everything. Derek insisted on taking me to Giovanni's, my favorite Italian restaurant. He and Lisa arrived dressed more formally than usual, and Derek seemed nervous, fidgeting with his napkin and checking his phone repeatedly. "Mom, we have something for you," he announced after our entrees arrived. He handed me a glossy envelope tied with a ribbon. Inside was a brochure for a luxury Mediterranean cruise, along with a card that read, "Time to relax and enjoy life." "This is too much," I gasped, genuinely touched by what seemed like extraordinary generosity. "You deserve it, Mom," Derek said, his eyes bright with what I interpreted as love. "After everything you've done for me, it's time you had an adventure." Lisa nodded enthusiastically. "The Mediterranean has always been on your bucket list, right?" I was overwhelmed with gratitude, tears filling my eyes as I reached across the table to squeeze their hands. Little did I know what truly lay behind those seemingly kind eyes. The weeks following the dinner were filled with excited preparation for my cruise. Derek and Lisa insisted on helping me get ready, offering to take me shopping for new clothes and luggage. Their helpfulness seemed excessive, but I attributed it to their excitement about giving me this wonderful gift. "We need to make sure you have everything you need, Mom," Derek said as he added yet another item to my growing pile of cruise essentials. "This is going to be a long trip." That comment struck me as odd. The cruise was scheduled for 3 weeks, which, while substantial, wasn't exactly what I would call long in that tone of voice. Still, I brushed it aside, focusing instead on my growing anticipation. As the departure date grew closer, I began noticing strange behaviors from both Derek and Lisa. They would whisper to each other and abruptly stop when I entered a room. Sometimes I would catch Lisa giving Derek meaningful looks, and once I heard her hiss, "Not now, she might hear you." Derek insisted on keeping all my cruise documents for safekeeping, claiming he wanted to make sure everything was in order. This seemed unnecessary since I had always managed my own affairs perfectly well, but I went along with it, not wanting to seem ungrateful for their generosity. "I'll bring everything on the day we drive you to the port," he assured me. "That way, you don't have to worry about losing anything important." 2 days before the cruise, I was at Derek's house finalizing some details when I realized I had forgotten to pack my blood pressure medication. Knowing they were running errands, I used my spare key to let myself in, planning to be quick and leave a note thanking them for their help. As I walked toward Derek's home office to find a notepad, I heard his voice. They had returned early. I was about to call out when I heard my name mentioned. Something in his tone made me pause outside the partially open door. "Mom will never know it's a one-way ticket," Derek was saying, his voice containing a chuckle that sent chills down my spine. "Are you sure she won't make a fuss when she realizes she can't come back?" Lisa asked. "By then it'll be too late," Derek replied confidently. "We'll have sold her house and she'll have signed the power of attorney. She trusts me completely." "And the retirement home in Arizona is expecting her?" Lisa asked. "Yes, once the cruise ends, the cruise line staff will ensure she gets on the plane. They're used to handling elderly passengers. The home thinks she's chosen to move there. No one will question it." I stood frozen, my hand over my mouth to stifle any sound that might give away my presence. My own son was plotting to ship me away and steal my home. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that for a moment I couldn't process it. Silently, I backed away from the door. With trembling hands, I let myself out of the house. Only when I was safely in my car did I allow the tears to come hot and bitter. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing with questions and my heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. The drive home was a blur of tears and disbelief. I nearly ran off the road twice as my mind replayed Derek's words over and over. Once home, I collapsed onto my couch, the cruise brochure still sitting mockingly on my coffee table. The colorful images of Mediterranean sunsets and smiling passengers now seemed sinister, a beautiful trap designed to remove me from my life. After hours of crying, something shifted inside me. The initial shock and heartbreak transformed into a cold, clear anger. I had spent my life nurturing and supporting my son. I had sacrificed for his education, celebrated his successes, and comforted him through failures. And this was how he repaid me. I wiped my tears and began to think strategically. If Derek and Lisa were planning to declare me mentally incompetent and gain power of attorney, they must have paperwork prepared. I needed to find it and understand exactly what they were planning. The next day, I called Derek, working hard to keep my voice normal. "Honey, I'm so excited about the cruise. Could I stop by to discuss some last-minute questions? I want to make sure I understand everything." He seemed pleased by my enthusiasm. "Of course, Mom. How about this afternoon? Lisa will be at her yoga class so we can go over everything without distractions." "Perfect." Once at his house, I waited for Derek to step away to take a work call, then slipped into his home office. With shaking hands, I began carefully searching through his desk drawers. In the bottom drawer, hidden beneath some tax documents, I found a folder labeled Mom. Inside were papers that confirmed my worst fears. There was a power of attorney document awaiting my signature, along with paperwork for a bargain basement retirement home in Arizona called Sunset Gardens. The facility's brochure showed a dingy building, nothing like the vibrant retirement communities in our area. Further documentation revealed applications for a reverse mortgage on my home and inquiries to real estate agents about selling it. Most disturbing was a letter from a doctor I had never met stating concerns about my cognitive abilities. The letter suggested early signs of dementia, noting confusion and memory issues that I had never experienced. Derek had been laying groundwork to declare me incompetent. While continuing my search, I discovered something else that explained their desperation. Financial statements showed Derek and Lisa were drowning in debt. Credit card bills revealed Lisa's shopping addiction, with thousands spent monthly on designer clothes and jewelry. There were also threatening letters from creditors and notices of impending foreclosure on their own home. They had even taken out loans against my house without my knowledge, forging my signature on documents. The evidence was clear. They planned to ship me off, sell my home, pay their debts with the proceeds, and abandon me in a substandard facility across the country. I carefully photographed everything with my phone, being sure to return each document exactly as I found it. When Derek returned, I maintained my charade of excited anticipation about the cruise, asking innocuous questions about the weather in the Mediterranean and what clothes I should pack. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by the photos I'd taken, feeling as though I was looking at evidence of a crime committed by strangers, not by my only child. The pain was almost physical, a crushing weight on my chest that made it difficult to breathe. But beneath the pain was something else growing stronger by the minute determination. After a sleepless night, I called my friend Judith, who had retired from her law practice 3 years earlier. We had taught at the same school for decades, and I trusted her completely. "My God, Connie, this is elder abuse plain and simple," she said after I showed her the evidence. "You need to protect yourself legally and fast." With Judith's help, I met with her former colleague Thomas Brennan, an attorney specializing in elder law. He was outraged by Derek's scheme. "Unfortunately, this is more common than you might think," Thomas said grimly. "But you've caught it early, which gives us an advantage." We devised a comprehensive plan. First, I signed new legal documents clearly stating my current mental competence, backed by an evaluation from my longtime physician. Thomas helped me create a new will and power of attorney, naming Judith as my representative instead of Derek. We filed restraining orders, preventing any changes to the deed or mortgage of my home without my notarized consent. Next, I contacted the cruise line, directly using the booking number I'd found in Derek's documents. My suspicions were confirmed. The ticket was indeed one way with no return passage booked. Furthermore, there were instructions to connect me with a transportation service in Athens that would take me to the airport for a one-way flight to Phoenix. I created a new email account and reached out to Adult Protective Services detailing the evidence I had gathered. The caseworker was supportive, explaining that financial exploitation of elderly parents was a growing problem. She connected me with a detective who specialized in elder abuse cases. "Don't confront them yet," the detective advised. "Let them think their plan is proceeding. We need to catch them in the act with clear evidence." Following his advice, I purchased small cameras that I hid throughout my house, particularly focused on areas where documents might be signed. I moved my valuable jewelry, important documents, and sentimental items to a safe deposit box at my bank. I withdrew a significant amount of cash and stored it securely with Judith, ensuring I would have resources if Derek somehow gained access to my accounts. I researched elder abuse laws in our state, learning about the criminal penalties Derek and Lisa could face. The knowledge gave me a grim satisfaction. They had underestimated me, assuming that my age made me an easy target. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The night before the cruise, Derek insisted on hosting a bon voyage dinner at my house. This was perfect for my counterplan. I invited Judith to join us, introducing her as a friend who had come to wish me well. What Derek didn't know was that Thomas the attorney and the detective were waiting in cars down the street, ready to come in when signaled. As I prepared for this final confrontation, I felt a strange calm descend over me. The initial shock and pain had been replaced by a steely resolve. If Derek and Lisa wanted to play this game, they would learn that I was far from the helpless old woman they thought I was. In fact, I was about to teach them the most important lesson of their lives. The farewell dinner began with an atmosphere of false cheer. My dining room table was set with my best china, a bottle of expensive champagne chilling in an ice bucket. Derek and Lisa arrived dressed elegantly, bearing gifts and flowers. "To new adventures," Derek toasted, raising his glass with a smile that now seemed sinister to my aware eyes. I noticed how he kept refilling my champagne glass while barely touching his own. "You're going to have such an amazing time, Connie." Lisa gushed her eyes, not quite meeting mine. "I packed some motion sickness pills in your toiletry bag just in case." Later, I discovered those motion sickness pills were actually sedatives likely intended to keep me docile during the journey. Throughout dinner, I played the role of excited, slightly tipsy mother, pretending to drink more than I actually was. I exclaimed over the cruise brochure they had brought, asking innocent questions about the itinerary. "So, after Athens, what happens?" I asked, watching them carefully. Derek and Lisa exchanged glances. Well, you'll fly back from there, Derek said smoothly. All arranged. How thoughtful, I replied, noting the lie. After dinner, Derek pulled out a folder. Just some cruise insurance papers to sign Mom. Standard stuff. I recognized the cruise insurance for what it really was, the power of attorney documents I had discovered in his office. With Judith present, I had substituted the documents with harmless papers that looked similar but granted no actual powers. I signed them with flourish, watching relief flood Derek's face. While pretending to use the bathroom, I texted Thomas and the detective who were waiting outside. Then, I slipped a digital recorder into my pocket before returning to the dining room. As dessert was served, Lisa stepped away to take a phone call. Through my hidden camera, I later saw her frantically calling the retirement home in Arizona, confirming arrangements for my arrival. Meanwhile, Derek took a call in the kitchen, not realizing I could hear him clearly from where I stood in the hallway. Everything's set, he said quietly into his phone. She signed the papers. We'll get her on that ship tomorrow, and by the time she realizes what's happening, we'll have the house on the market. No, she doesn't suspect a thing. You know how trusting she is. When I returned to the dining room, Lisa was rifling through my desk drawers, presumably looking for financial documents. She jumped when she saw me. Just looking for a pen, she said quickly. Let's get this over with, she whispered to Derek when they thought I was out of earshot. I can't take another minute of pretending to care about her stupid cruise. That was the moment I decided the charade had gone on long enough. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked back into the dining room where my son and his wife were waiting, smug in their belief that their plan was working perfectly. Derek, I said calmly, setting my dessert plate down with a deliberate click against the table. There's something I'd like to discuss before we finish our evening. What is it, Mom? His voice was solicitous, but I could see the impatience in his eyes. I've been thinking about this cruise. It's such a generous gift. I paused, watching their faces carefully, especially considering it's a one-way ticket. The color drained from Derek's face. Lisa's fork clattered against her plate. What are you talking about? Derek attempted to laugh, but it came out strangled. Of course it's not one way. Please don't lie to me anymore. I pulled out my phone and played the recording of their conversation about the one-way ticket and selling my house. I heard everything 2 days ago when I came to get my medication. Mom, you've misunderstood, Derek began, but I cut him off. I've also seen the paperwork for Sunset Gardens in Arizona. Not exactly the luxury retirement community you made it sound like in your conversations. I laid photos of the documents on the table, and these loan applications using my house as collateral, with my forged signature. Lisa stood up abruptly. Derek, we need to leave. She's clearly confused. This is exactly why we've been concerned about her mental state. Sit down, Lisa, I said firmly. Nobody is leaving just yet. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Judith answered it, letting in Thomas Brennan and Detective Michael Reeves. Derek's eyes widened in panic. What is this, Mom? What have you done? I've protected myself, I replied. Something I never thought I'd need to do against my own son. Detective Reeves introduced himself and began explaining that he had evidence of attempted fraud and elder abuse. Derek's face contorted with desperate anger. She's not well, he shouted, pointing at me. She's been showing signs of dementia for months. Forgetfulness, confusion. Ask anyone. Like the doctor who signed this assessment, Thomas countered, producing the letter I had found. A doctor who, interestingly, has never actually met Mrs. Lawson. We've already spoken to him. He admitted you paid him $5,000 to write this letter without an examination. Lisa broke first. It was all Derek's idea, she cried, mascara streaming down her face. He said his mother would be better off in a care facility. I just went along with it. Derek stared at his wife in disbelief. You were the one drowning us in debt $12,000 on handbags last month alone. The house was the only way to fix the financial mess you created. As they turned on each other, Detective Reeves calmly collected statements and evidence. He explained that they were facing serious charges, attempted fraud, forgery, conspiracy, and financial elder abuse. When the initial chaos subsided, I asked the question that had been burning in my heart. Why Derek? I gave you everything. I loved you with my whole heart. How could you do this to me? For a moment, the entitled mask slipped, and I saw shame cross his face. But it quickly hardened into justification. You don't need that big house, he muttered. We're drowning in debt. The banks are about to take our home. It wasn't fair that you had all that equity just sitting there when we needed it." His words struck me like physical blows. In his mind, my home, my security, my very life were simply resources to be plundered for his convenience. The son I had raised, the boy I had loved fiercely, had become a man who saw his mother as nothing but a problem to solve and an asset to exploit. As the police led Derek and Lisa away, I sat at my dining room table surrounded by the remains of our farewell dinner, feeling both utterly devastated and strangely liberated. The worst had happened. My son had betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. Yet, I had survived, and more than survived. I had fought back. 6 months after that terrible night, I found myself on a different cruise ship watching the sunset over the Mediterranean with 3 new friends I had met through my elder abuse support group. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was finally taking that cruise, but on my own terms. The legal aftermath of Derek and Lisa's scheme had been swift and definitive. With the overwhelming evidence I had gathered, they both pled guilty to reduced charges of attempted fraud and elder abuse. Derek received probation and community service along with mandatory counseling. Lisa, who had additional charges related to credit card fraud, served 30 days in jail. Their marriage did not survive the ordeal. The healing process was slower and more complex. For weeks after the confrontation, I would wake up at night in tears, the sense of betrayal so acute it felt like a physical wound. The house that had been my sanctuary now echoed with painful memories. I found myself jumping at unexpected sounds, checking my financial statements obsessively, and struggling to trust even longtime friends. Judith suggested I join a support group for survivors of elder abuse. Initially reluctant, I eventually attended a meeting and was shocked to discover how common my experience was. Men and women of all backgrounds shared stories of children, grandchildren, and caregivers who had attempted or succeeded in exploiting them financially. In that group, I found not only understanding but also a new purpose. As a former teacher, I naturally fell into the role of educator, helping create materials to warn seniors about potential scams and family exploitation. Working with local community centers, I began giving talks about recognizing the warning signs of elder abuse. 3 months after the incident, Derek reached out through his therapist asking to meet. It was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, but I agreed to see him in a neutral location with Judith present. He seemed smaller somehow, the arrogant confidence replaced by genuine remorse. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said, his voice breaking. "What I did was unforgivable, but I wanted you to know I'm working to understand why I did it. The therapist is helping me see how entitled and selfish I've been." Our relationship would never be the same, but over time we established a new connection based on clear boundaries and expectations. I made it absolutely clear that he would never again have access to my financial information or legal documents. Trust, once shattered, could not be fully restored. As for my home, I decided to stay. It was mine, filled with memories of a happier time, and I refused to let Derek's betrayal taint it. I did, however, invite a graduate student to rent my spare room, providing both additional income and companionship. Marie was studying gerontology and found our arrangement provided valuable insights for her research. The cruise I eventually took was everything the original one promised to be, but with an important difference: I was surrounded by friends who genuinely cared about my well-being. Together, we explored ancient ruins, ate delicious Mediterranean food, and laughed under starlit skies. On the final night of the cruise, as we shared a bottle of wine on the deck, my new friend, Eleanor, raised her glass. To Connie, who taught us all that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. The others raised their glasses, and I felt tears well up, but these were different from the bitter tears I had shed months before. These were tears of gratitude for the unexpected strength I had found and the new community that had embraced me. Life takes unexpected turns. Sometimes the people we trust most deeply are the ones who betray us. But I learned that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning of a new chapter 1 where we discover reserves of courage and resilience we never knew we possessed. Have you ever had to stand up to someone who underestimated you because of your age? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and reinvention. And remember to share with anyone who might need a reminder that they're stronger than they know. Thank you for listening, and remember, our worth isn't determined by how others treat us, but by how we respond when that treatment falls short.